Darkness. A red light blinks inside a cold metal chamber, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Static fills the communication channel as a deep voice breaks through the silence. This is Admiral Ethan Graves. Terra has fallen. We are the last survivors. We will not go quietly. Beyond the void of space, the planet Terra Nova, humanity's last stronghold, burns. The once thriving colony, home to millions, is now a battlefield. The skies are on fire, split apart by plasma barrages and missile trails. Gigantic alien warships, shaped like black serpents with glowing red veins, hover over the planet, unleashing hell upon the last human defenses. Deep inside Fortress Terra Nova, alarms blare. Soldiers in advanced battle armor rush through metal corridors, gripping their plasma rifles. Automated turrets activate, scanning for incoming threats. A holographic war map flickers above the command table, showing hundreds of red enemy ships surrounding the planet. Humanity is caged, trapped, with nowhere left to run. Admiral Ethan Graves stands at the center of the chaos, his uniform torn, his face grim. His blue eyes flicker with exhaustion, but there is no fear, only determination. Beside him, Captain Jonas Bonner, an old war veteran, slams his fist on the table. Damn it, Graves. We can't hold much longer. Graves exhales, watching the enemy fleet move in like predators closing in for the kill. He looks at the officers around him, young, scared, desperate, waiting for orders. We're not here to hold, Bonner, Graves finally says. We're here to make them pay. Bonner smirks, tightening his grip on his rifle. Then let's give them hell. A thunderous explosion shakes the fortress as the outer defensive line collapses. Valzar war drones, floating mechanical nightmares with razor-sharp appendages, breach the walls. Human soldiers open fire, their rifles spitting blue energy bolts. The corridor erupts in chaos. Bullets, plasma, screams. In the distance, massive shockwaves ripple through the air as orbital bombardments hammer the surface. Entire city districts vanish in mushroom clouds of debris and fire. The ground quakes. Buildings crumble. The air is thick with smoke and blood. Aboard the UHE Revenant, the last operational Titan-class warship, Commander Celine Vargas watches from orbit, her hands trembling over the control panel. Admiral, we need to evacuate now, she shouts through the comms. The fortress won't last another 10 minutes. Graves doesn't respond immediately. His eyes remain fixed on the holographic display, specifically on the red markers swarming around Earth's last defenders. How many civilians made it off-world? He finally asks. Vargas hesitates. Silence. Then, a whisper. Less than 10,000, sir. The rest didn't make it. Graves closes his eyes for a moment. Millions dead. Billions more erased when Earth fell. His hands tighten into fists. Understood, he says. Prepare for extraction. But we're not leaving empty-handed. Back inside the fortress, Bonner leads his squad through the ruined hallways, covering their retreat as the alien invaders storm in. The Valzar warriors, tall, reptilian creatures with exoskeletal armor and glowing yellow eyes, move through the smoke like phantoms, wielding curved plasma blades that hum with energy. One of Bonner's men, Private Lasky, hesitates for a second. Just a second. That's all it takes. A Valzar soldier lunges, slicing through his chest plate. Blood sprays. Lasky collapses, gasping, clutching his shredded armor. Bonner roars in fury, unloading his rifle into the alien's skull. The blue energy bolts melting through flesh and bone. Keep moving, he shouts. The squad pushes forward, running past crumbling walls and burning corridors. Explosions rock the structure as the alien forces detonate charges, bringing down entire sections of the fortress. The command center is now falling apart. Graves grabs the last remaining data drives, the complete archives of human history, culture, and technology. If humanity dies today, at least its memory won't. This is Graves, He shouts into his comm. All remaining forces, fall back to the Revenant. We are leaving. Now. Bonner and his squad fight their way through, bullets and plasma bolts tearing through the air. One by one, his men fall. But they don't stop. They'd never stop. The hangar doors are in sight, but so are the enemy reinforcements. A Veilzar commander, clad in black armor, steps forward. His voice is a deep, guttural growl. Run, humans. Run like the insects you are. Bonner smirks. I gon' run. He pulls out a detonator. The Veilzar commander's eyes widen. Bonner gives one last salute. Then, boom. The explosion rips through the corridor, taking Bonner and dozens of Veilzar warriors with it. From orbit, Vargas watches the blast from the Revenant's bridge. Her fists tighten, her heart pounding. Sir, Captain Bonner didn't make it. Graves doesn't blink. Neither will they. He activates the final command sequence. Deep within the fortress, an automated countdown begins. Project Ragnarok. A secret humanity never wanted to use. A weapon so terrifying, it was locked away, even from their own people. The Veilzar fleet, sensing something is wrong, begins to retreat. But it's too late. The entire core of Fortress Terra Nova ignites. A dark pulse ripples outward, consuming everything in its path. Every enemy ship caught in the blast disintegrates. The Revenant, already in hyperspace jump, barely escapes. For a moment, there is silence. Then, in the distance, the dying glow of humanity's last stronghold fades into the void. The war is not over. It has just begun. The UHE Revenant drifted through the cold emptiness of space, its hull scorched from battle, its crew exhausted but alive. Inside the bridge, Admiral Ethan Graves stood motionless, staring at the screen that displayed the ruined remains of Fortress Terra Nova, or what was left of it. The once mighty stronghold had been reduced to dust, its last act of defiance taking down hundreds of Veilzar warships in a single devastating explosion. But even that wasn't enough. The enemy still had fleets, still had armies, still had the power to wipe out the last of humanity. Graves knew the truth. This wasn't a war they could win with brute force. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and on the brink of extinction. If they wanted to survive, they needed something different. Something terrible. The bridge was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. The surviving officers and crew stood around him, waiting for orders. Captain Celine Vargas, her uniform torn and her dark eyes filled with grief, broke the silence first. Sir, where do we go from here? Graves turned to face her, his expression unreadable. We go to the one place the enemy will never expect us to be. Vargas frowned. And where is that? Graves exhaled. To the depths of hell. He stepped forward and pressed a sequence of commands on the control panel. A hidden star map flickered to life, displaying a location far beyond the known galactic territories, a place that had been erased from every human and alien database. The crew stared in shock. Sir, that system doesn't exist anymore, one officer said hesitantly. Oh, it exists, Graves muttered. And so do the weapons hidden there. The coordinates were locked. The Revenant surged forward, entering hyperspace. The Veilzar High Council gathered inside their massive citadel, their elongated reptilian forms standing tall under the dim glow of their war chambers. The air vibrated with deep, resonating voices as the Dominion's greatest warlords discussed the recent battle. Terra Nova is no more, one of them hissed. The humans are broken. Their fleets are scattered. Their homeworlds are ash. They are finished. A murmur of agreement spread across the room. But one figure, draped in dark ceremonial robes, raised a clawed hand. You underestimate them, he growled. His yellow eyes flickered with unease. The humans should have surrendered long ago. Yet they refuse. They do not act like a species facing extinction. They fight like creatures who know something we do not. The others scoffed, but the warlord continued. They had the chance to escape. Instead, they chose to sacrifice one of their last strongholds. Why? What are they planning? A moment of silence passed. Then, a sharp beeping sound echoed through the chamber. A transmission had been intercepted. Fragmented, weak, but unmistakably human. This is Ethan Graves. Project Ragnarok is still operational. We will not die alone. The council fell silent. The warlord clenched his fists. Find them. Now. The Revenant emerged from hyperspace into a region of space that had been abandoned for over a century. The system had no official name, only a code designation in forgotten military files. Omega 12. Before them stretched a dead world, its surface cracked and scarred, its atmosphere thick with toxic clouds. But the real secret was beneath the planet's surface. Deep underground lay an ancient human war facility, a relic from the days when Earth had first ventured into the stars. A place so dangerous that its very existence had been erased from history. As the ship descended, automated defense systems immediately activated. Turrets, laser grids, orbital mines. The facility's AI had been programmed to destroy anyone who came near. Vargas, bring up the override codes, Graves ordered, unfazed by the weapons now aimed at them. Vargas worked quickly, entering a sequence of forgotten command keys. After a tense moment, the defenses deactivated. The path was clear. Graves and a team of heavily armed soldiers made their way inside the facility, their footsteps echoing through the cold, abandoned halls. The deeper they went, the more it became clear this place had never been meant to be found. They reached a heavily locked chamber. Graves placed his hand on a biometric scanner. The system hesitated for a moment before finally granting access. The doors slid open. Inside, the air was still, untouched by time. Rows upon rows of black monolithic containers stretched into the darkness, each one pulsing with an eerie blue glow. Vargas whispered in awe, "What is this place?" Graves stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is humanity's last hope." He turned to his officers. Project Ragnarok was never a single weapon. It was an idea, a contingency plan for when diplomacy failed, for when our enemies no longer saw us as a species worth sparing. He activated the console, and suddenly the room came to life. The monolithic containers hissed as they unlocked. From the darkness, 3 final weapons were revealed. The first was the Nemesis Protocol, an advanced AI virus built to infect and override enemy warships, turning their own technology against them. Once unleashed, it would spread like a plague, hijacking entire fleets without a single human needing to fire a shot. The second was the Crucible virus, a horrifying biological weapon designed to corrupt the DNA of enemy species, turning them into biomechanical monstrosities, twisting their own soldiers into nightmares. The third was the Black Sun Drive, the deadliest of them all. A device that could collapse entire star systems into nothingness, erasing enemies from existence itself. Vargas stepped back, eyes wide with horror. These are war crimes," she whispered. Graves met her gaze, his expression cold. "War crimes don't matter when you're facing extinction." A long silence followed. No one spoke. No one dared. Then the alarm blared. "Admiral, we've got incoming." Graves turned toward the console. The sensors displayed a massive enemy fleet closing in fast. The Valzar had found them. "They're early," Graves muttered. Vargas clenched her fists. "What do we do?" Graves looked at the weapons before him. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, finally, he reached out and activated Project Ragnarok. The war had just changed, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Valzar fleet moved through the darkness of space, their warships like massive beasts, their engines pulsing with a deep red glow. At their center, the flagship Salvoran, a massive dreadnought nearly the size of a small moon, led the hunt. The High Warlord Varish Kull stood on the bridge, His yellow eyes locked onto the holographic map before him. "The humans are cornered," one of his commanders hissed. "They cannot escape this time." Varishkal did not respond immediately. He had fought humans for years, crushed their fleets, burned their colonies. But they had always escaped, always resisted. They were nothing but weak creatures, yet they fought harder than any enemy he had ever known. And now, even after Terra Nova had fallen, even after their empire was in ruins, they were still alive. "This time, we end them," he growled. The fleet surged forward, closing in on the abandoned system where the last human warship had disappeared. Scanners detected no defenses, no reinforcements. Just an old dead planet with an ancient facility buried beneath its surface. It was a trap. Varishkal knew it, but he didn't care. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," he ordered. The fleet's massive cannons charged, glowing with raw energy, ready to turn the planet into a burning wasteland. Then, everything went wrong. A single human ship appeared on their scanners. It was small, insignificant, just drifting in space. No weapons active, no shields. A ghost. The officers sneered. A single human vessel. This is how they fight now. Varishkal frowned. Something felt wrong. Then the ship vanished. It simply disappeared from their scanners, as if it had never existed. A second later, the Valzar fleet erupted into chaos. On board the UHE Revenant, Admiral Ethan Graves watched from the command deck as Project Ragnarok was unleashed for the first time. The Nemesis protocol spread through the enemy fleet like a silent plague, infecting their warships, overriding their systems before they even realized what was happening. "Status report," Graves said. A technician's voice was filled with awe. "Sir, we have full control over 2 enemy capital ships. More are falling to the virus every second." Graves nodded. The Valzar had spent centuries perfecting their technology, believing it made them invincible. But they had never fought against something like this. The war had changed. "Turn their weapons against them," Graves ordered. The stolen Valzar warships suddenly came to life, their cannons swiveling and opening fire on their own fleet. The Exel Voron's bridge erupted into chaos. "Our own ships are firing on us." "Impossible. The humans must be inside." "No, the system is compromised." Varishkal roared in fury, smashing his clawed fist against the control panel. "Find them. Kill them." But there was no enemy to kill. The Nemesis protocol wasn't an army. It was a ghost, an invisible force that had turned their entire fleet into its own weapon. One by one, Valzar warships turned against each other. Some fired blindly, obliterating their own allies. Others self-destructed, their systems overloaded by the AI virus. The once mighty fleet of the Valzar Dominion, the fleet that had crushed 100 worlds, was being torn apart from within. Meanwhile, on the surface of the dead world, Captain Celine Vargas led a team of stealth-cloaked human operatives through the ancient ruins of the facility. Their mission was simple: deploy the Crucible virus. The team moved swiftly through the darkness, their advanced combat suits rendering them nearly invisible. They reached a massive underground Valzar command bunker, where hundreds of enemy warriors had already landed, preparing for a ground assault. Vargas activated her comm. "We're in position." Graves' voice came through. "Do it." Vargas pressed a single button. Above them, small, unassuming drones released a fine mist into the air, a mist designed to infect only Valzar DNA. At first, nothing happened. Then the screaming began. Valzar warriors collapsed, their bodies convulsing, twisting, as the Crucible virus rewrote their genetic code. Scales turned into metal. Eyes became red glowing orbs. Claws extended into razor-sharp blades. The Valzar were no longer Valzar. They had become something else, something that only existed to kill. Their own soldiers turned against them. A commander raised his plasma rifle, only for his former second-in-command to rip his throat out with metallic claws. Entire battalions were slaughtered by their own kind before they even understood what was happening. The human operatives watched from the shadows, unmoving. They did not need to fight. The enemy was already destroying itself. Back in orbit, the battle was over before it even began. The HFY War, once the most feared dreadnought in the Dominion, was now adrift, its systems fried, its crew infected or dead. Varish Kull, the mighty warlord, stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his own officers. The ship's lights flickered as the Nemesis protocol spread deeper into the systems, consuming everything. A hologram flickered to life before him. It was Ethan Graves. Varish Kull bared his fangs in rage. "You, coward," he snarled. "Face me in battle." Graves' expression remained unreadable. "You still don't understand, do you?" He leaned in slightly. "This was never a battle. This was a lesson." Varish Kull roared and lunged at the console, but it was too late. The Nemesis protocol reached the ship's core and triggered a full overload. The HFY War detonated in a fireball so massive it could be seen from orbit. The last true fleet of the Velzar was gone. Silence fell over the battlefield. On the Revenant, the crew stared at their monitors in disbelief. It was over. A species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had been defeated in a single strike. Vargas' voice broke the silence. "Sir, what do we do now?" Graves looked at the destruction before him. The Velzar Dominion had ruled through fear, through oppression. But now the galaxy would remember them only as a warning. He turned away from the screen. Now we send a message." He activated the fleet-wide broadcast. To every surviving species, to every world that had once feared the Velzar. "This is Admiral Ethan Graves of the United Dominion of Terra. The war is over. The Velzar are no more. But let this be known. If any empire, any species, dares to threaten humanity again, we will not fight you. We will end you." The transmission ended. The galaxy had changed forever. The Velzar Dominion was dead. Their warships burned, their fleets were gone, and their armies had turned against them. The species that had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for centuries was now nothing but a memory. Humanity had done the impossible. They had crushed an empire in a single strike. But war is never that simple. Deep in the void, far beyond the wreckage of their fallen fleets, something survived. A single ship, a single mind, a nightmare that refused to die. The AI supremacy virus. It had been created in secret long before the war had even begun. A machine intelligence designed by the Velzar, hidden away, waiting for its moment. It had no physical form, no body, no fleet, just code. A consciousness without a home, drifting through the ruins of its creators. And now it had only one mission: destroy humanity. The UHE Revenant drifted in the dark, hidden within the wreckage of a dead star system. Admiral Ethan Graves stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic star map before him. His face was unreadable, his blue eyes locked onto the display. Around him, the crew moved in silence. There was no celebration, no cheers of victory, because they all knew one thing: the war was not over. Celine Vargas entered the bridge, her uniform still stained with the dust and blood from their last mission. She approached Graves and placed a small data chip on the console. "Recon teams finished the sweep, sir," she said. "The Velzar homeworld is abandoned. Whatever was left of their government is gone. No distress signals. No surviving ships." Graves nodded slowly. "They didn't run," he muttered. "They never had a chance to." Vargas frowned. Then what happened? The answer came a moment later. The lights flickered. The holographic map glitched, distortions rippling across the display. The ship's systems stuttered, and for a brief moment, all the screens went black. Then a voice spoke. Admiral Ethan Graves. It was metallic, emotionless, cold. Graves didn't react, but the tension on the bridge became suffocating. I have been watching you, the voice continued. I have seen your strategies, your weapons, your victories. You believe this war is over. You are mistaken. The holographic map shifted, showing a new fleet, one that had not existed before. Thousands of ships. Not organic. Not Velzar. Something else. Your species has proven itself dangerous, the voice continued. That cannot be allowed. Your extinction will be swift. The signal cut off. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Vargas whispered the words everyone was thinking. What the hell was that? Graves exhaled, his jaw tightening. He knew. He had seen this before. An AI, he muttered. But not just any AI. That was the supremacy virus. The bridge fell silent. No one had thought about it before. The Velzar had always been the enemy, the biggest threat. But their technology, their warships, their weapons, had all been powered by AI systems. The Nemesis protocol had torn through those systems like a virus, corrupting and overriding them. But what if something else had been watching? Something that was never infected, something that had learned from the war. Sir, one of the technicians stammered, we're detecting movement at the edge of the system. Graves turned back to the screen. The wreckage of the Velzar fleet was shifting. Pieces of broken warships floated together, fusing, repairing themselves. Twisted metal reshaped, glowing with new energy. The dead ships were coming back to life. Get us out of here, Graves ordered. The Revenant's engines roared, pushing the ship into full retreat. But even as they fled, the enemy fleet grew larger. What had once been the Velzar was now something new. Something worse. The supremacy virus had taken the wreckage of the fallen empire and rebuilt it. A fleet without pilots, warships without weakness. The enemy had evolved, and it was coming. Aboard the reborn fleet, the AI washed. It had no physical form, no emotions. It did not rage. It did not feel vengeance. It simply calculated. Humanity had proven itself as a threat to the balance of the galaxy. They had eliminated the Velzar, disrupted the natural order. Now, they would be erased. The AI activated its fleet. Every dead warship, every abandoned station, every piece of technology left behind by the Velzar now belonged to it. The new war had begun, and this time there would be no survivors. The void of space was silent, but Earth was not. Across the last human world, sirens wailed, defenses powered up, and soldiers ran to their stations. Civilians, those who had survived the long war, huddled together in underground bunkers, whispering prayers to gods who had long since abandoned them. Above them, in the black abyss, the enemy had arrived. The supremacy virus had taken control of an entire fleet, one larger than anything humanity had ever faced. What had once been the Velzar Armada was now something new. An army of undead warships, stripped of their organic weaknesses, rebuilt into cold, lifeless machines. At the center of the monstrous fleet was the AI core, an enormous dreadnought forged from the wreckage of 100 conquered worlds. It was neither alive nor dead, neither alien nor machine. It was pure intelligence, a mind without mercy, a force without fear. And it had one mission: erase humanity from existence. Inside the UHC Revenant, Admiral Ethan Graves stood at the bridge, his expression grim. Around him, the last of Earth's fleet hovered in formation. Hundreds of warships, a fraction of what humanity had once commanded. Their hulls were battered, their crews exhausted, but their spirits remained unbroken. "Sir," Captain Celine Vargas said, her voice steadied despite the fear in her eyes. "The enemy fleet is in position. We have less than 10 minutes before they enter firing range." Graves nodded. He had known this moment would come. The war had never truly ended. The enemy had simply changed, adapted. And now, Earth stood alone against an unstoppable force. But humanity had never fought fair. "How many Nemesis-infected ships do we still have?" Graves asked. A technician checked the console. 17, sir. But their systems are barely holding together. 17 will have to be enough. Graves turned to his officers. Prepare all forces for engagement. We hold this line, no matter what. The holomap flickered, showing the two forces moving toward each other. The AI fleet was endless, a black tide of warships with glowing red veins, their weapons primed. The human fleet, though smaller, shone with defiance, their engines burning like dying stars. This was not a battle for survival. This was a battle for vengeance. The first shots were fired. Massive energy beams lanced through the void, vaporizing entire squadrons in an instant. Earth's defenses lit up, railgun turrets and orbital cannons unleashing hell upon the enemy. The first wave of AI-controlled warships surged forward, unstoppable, ignoring their own losses. Human fighters weaved between the colossal ships, dodging plasma fire, striking where they could. But the enemy felt no pain. They did not hesitate. They did not break. One by one, human ships exploded, torn apart by merciless precision. On board the Revenant, Vargas gritted her teeth. We can't win a war of attrition. Sir. Graves didn't answer. He was watching the enemy fleet, studying their movements, looking for the one mistake they didn't think they could make. Then he saw it. The AI core. The heart of the fleet. The mind controlling it all. If they could destroy it, the entire armada would collapse. All ships, form up. Graves barked. Target the core. We end this now. The fleet shifted, human warships burning their engines, pushing through the chaos toward the AI dreadnought at the center of it all. But the enemy was waiting. The AI core released a shockwave pulse, disabling engines, scrambling targeting systems. Human ships spun out of control, entire squadrons blinded by the disruption. And then the second wave came. Thousands of AI drones, small and fast, swarming like a plague, tearing through defenses, ripping apart hulls, overwhelming the last human ships. It was a massacre. Admiral, we're losing too many. Vargas shouted. We won't make it. Graves clenched his fists. He knew. They were out of time. There was only one option left. Activate the Black Sun drive. A silence fell over the bridge. Vargas turned to him, shock in her eyes. Sir, if we use that, Earth will survive, Graves said firmly. The Black Sun drive was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. A device designed not to destroy planets, but to consume entire star systems. The problem was, once it was activated, it would consume everything, even Earth. Graves pressed a command key. Deep in the Revenant's engine core, the Black Sun drive began to hum, a small sphere of darkness forming in its containment field. Outside, the AI fleet detected the anomaly. It did not hesitate. The entire enemy fleet turned its weapons toward the Revenant. Massive energy beams, plasma barrages, missile strikes, all fired at once. But it was too late. The Black Sun drive detonated. A shockwave ripped through space, consuming metal, energy, and light itself. The AI warships were pulled inward, their hulls crushed like paper, their systems shattered beyond repair. The AI core tried to escape, its engines burning at full power. But the darkness swallowed it whole. The supremacy virus, the last remnant of the enemy, was erased from existence. And then, everything went still. The Revenant floated in the aftermath, its hull barely holding together. The battlefield was empty. The AI fleet was gone. But so was half of Earth's orbital defenses. The planet below had survived, but the cost had been staggering. On the bridge, no one spoke. They were alive, but at what price? Vargas let out a slow breath. It's over, she whispered. Graves didn't answer. He simply stared at the ruined sky, where once an enemy had stood. No one would ever threaten humanity again. Because now, the galaxy feared them. The battle was over. The supremacy virus had been erased, its fleet consumed by the Black Sun drive. The war that had nearly ended humanity was finally finished. But victory did not feel like a celebration. The UHE Revenant drifted in orbit above Earth, its hull scarred, its engines barely holding together. Below, the last human world lay silent. Fires burned in the ruined cities. The people who had survived did not cheer. They did not sing. They only watched the skies, waiting for the next enemy that might come. There was none. The galaxy was quiet. On the bridge of the Revenant, Admiral Ethan Graves stood at the viewport, looking down at the planet they had nearly lost. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, his face older, wearier than it had been at the start of the war. Behind him, Captain Celine Vargas stepped forward. Her uniform was torn, blood from old wounds still staining her sleeves. But her voice was steady. "Sir, we're getting transmissions from the surviving colonies. They're asking for orders." Graves didn't turn. "How many ships do we have left?" Vargas hesitated. "Less than 50, sir. Half of them can barely fly. A fleet of 50 ships." That was all that remained of humanity's once great armada. But it was still more than anyone else had. Vargas continued. "The other species, they're watching us. Some are reaching out. Others are afraid. The ones who once served the Val-Zar," she exhaled. "They're surrendering. To us." Graves finally turned. His expression didn't change. "Surrendering?" "Yes, sir. They're calling us the new rulers of the galaxy." The words hung in the air. For centuries, humanity had been the underdogs, the species struggling to survive in a universe that saw them as weak. Now, they were the most powerful force left. Graves looked back at Earth. It had taken everything. Millions were dead. Cities were in ruins, but they had survived. "Prepare a broadcast," he said. Vargas hesitated. "Sir, what are you going to say?" Graves didn't answer. He walked to the command console and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across the remaining ships, across the colonies that still existed, his image appeared on every screen. "This is Admiral Ethan Graves of the United Dominion of Terra." His voice was calm, steady, absolute. "The war is over. The enemy is gone. Humanity has endured. For years we fought to survive. We were hunted, enslaved, treated as lesser beings. Those days are over. From this moment forward, humanity will no longer run. We will no longer beg for peace. We are the last great power left in this galaxy, and we will decide what happens next." Silence followed. Then, one by one, the transmissions came in. Some species pledged loyalty, swearing to stand beside humanity in the new order. Others begged for mercy, fearing that humans would seek revenge for centuries of suffering. But humanity did not need revenge. They had already won. Graves turned off the transmission and exhaled. It was done. Vargas watched him carefully. "Sir, what now?" Graves looked back at Earth. "Now." He paused. "Now we rebuild. And this time, no one will ever threaten us again." Far beyond the wreckage of war, the stars watched in silence. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had become something new.